A sunken shipping container became the center of a major discovery when local researchers stumbled upon it resting at the bottom of the ocean. Initially, it appeared to be just another lost cargo container, but its contents held an astonishing secret. The discovery was no accident. Coast Guard buoys had detected unusual disturbances in the water, and sonar scans repeatedly picked up signs of something massive falling into the depths. This led Captain Izzy Barkley and her research team to investigate. They set out toward the location where the most intense tremors had been recorded, about 20 miles from shore. Upon arrival, Izzy, being both the team leader and lead researcher, suited up and dove in first to examine the object. What she found was an intact and well-sealed shipping container, something that shouldn't have been possible given how most containers are not watertight. Realizing she wouldn't be able to move the massive metal structure by hand, Izzy resurfaced and immediately instructed her team to deploy their specialized diving robot. Their research vessel was equipped with high-end technology, and Izzy was highly trained to operate it. As the robotic drone descended into the clear waters, it navigated easily toward the sunken object. The real challenge, however, was not in reaching the container, but in lifting it. The robot attached its mechanical claws around the container's sides, and the ship's crane was activated to haul it up. Despite the crane's capability to lift heavy loads, the container proved far heavier than expected. The entire ship rocked violently as it struggled to pull the object from the depths. The team held their breath as water splashed onto the deck, and after a nerve-wracking struggle, the container finally emerged from the ocean with a loud bang as it landed on the ship's deck. The crew rushed toward the metallic box, eager to examine its contents. Izzy, however, noticed something odd. Normally, water would drain out of a shipping container that had been underwater, yet this one was completely dry inside. This meant it had been deliberately sealed to be watertight. The crew's deck workers, wasting no time, pulled at the door handle, but the container was locked. Izzy took a deep breath and gave the order to break it open. Using a large bolt cutter, they snapped off the lock, and with a deep groan of metal, the door swung open. What they found inside left everyone speechless. The interior of the container was fully furnished like a small home. There was a bed, a couch, a closet, and a table with chairs, everything one would expect in a normal household. But why was a fully furnished room sitting at the bottom of the ocean? Izzy and her team stepped inside, scanning every inch of the strange living space. Some objects were made of wood, while others were covered in fabric. They found scattered items on the floor, including photographs of a man with his family. Despite searching every corner, they found no immediate explanation for what had happened. Frustration built among the team, but just as they were about to give up, one of Izzy's colleagues let out an excited yell. He held up a plastic Ziploc bag containing a small recording device. The crew gathered around as Izzy carefully examined it, relieved to see that it was still dry. She pressed play, hoping for answers. The first few seconds were filled with background noise before a male voice, panicked and desperate, began to speak. "I need to record this before they notice we are here and cap us," the voice said. The message was ominous, and the urgency in his tone sent chills down Izzy's spine. The man then introduced himself as Aimed Osman and pleaded for help, revealing that he and others were trapped aboard a vessel called the Evercargo Voyager. The revelation left the team in stunned silence. They had uncovered a desperate cry for help, but time was running out. The ship in question had been sighted multiple times, but had a suspicious pattern of behavior. It only docked briefly, just long enough to refuel and move a minimal amount of cargo, despite being loaded with containers. Izzy's mind raced. Why would a shipping vessel behave this way? Alarmed, she checked the vessel's last known location in the ship logs and realized it wasn't too far away. Without hesitation, she gave the coordinates to her captain, knowing they had to act quickly. As they approached the site, anxiety filled the air. They spotted the Evercargo Voyager floating about 20 kilometers from the coast. Although eager to investigate, Izzy and her colleagues knew this was beyond their expertise. They needed help. She contacted the Coast Guard and the police, relaying everything they had discovered. The authorities took the situation seriously, but there was a problem. If the crew of the cargo ship saw law enforcement approaching, they might try to escape or cover up any evidence. Izzy came up with a plan. The police officers could dress as scientists and approach under the pretense of conducting a marine research study. Since the vessel was in an optimal location for fish migration studies, it was a believable cover story. Izzy, along with two officers, used a small dinghy to get close. Upon arrival, the ship's crew was immediately suspicious, hesitant to grant them access. Izzy had to work hard to convince them they were harmless researchers, and eventually, after half an hour of tense waiting, a ladder was lowered for them to board. The captain greeted them gruffly and gave them exactly 1 hour to conduct their study. As they walked the deck, pretending to take scientific readings, Izzy discreetly whispered the name, aimed Osman. Moments later, a container beside them creaked open, and before they could react, they were pulled inside. Inside the container, they were met with a shocking sight. Dozens of people, all living in conditions similar to the sunken container they had found earlier. Among them was aimed Osman, the man from the recording. Recognizing him instantly, Izzy quickly explained who she was and that they had found his message. Aim's tense expression softened into relief. He recounted his harrowing story. He and many others had sought passage to a safer country, lured by promises of work and a better life. However, once aboard the Ever-Cargo Voyager, they were forced into indefinite servitude. The crew continually extended their work contracts, never allowing them to set foot on land. Aim had tried to lead an uprising, but when the crew discovered his plans, they punished him by throwing his container overboard, destroying his living space and everything he owned. Before they did, however, he had managed to hide the recording in hopes that someone would find it. Izzy and the officers were horrified. This was far worse than they had imagined. The ship was essentially a floating prison, its human cargo trapped in modern slavery. Realizing they had to act fast, they asked Aimed about the number of crew members and whether they could put up a fight. The police discreetly radioed for backup, and a tactical plan was devised. When the raid commenced, it was executed flawlessly. The element of surprise worked in their favor, and the ship's crew was swiftly arrested. The Coast Guard took control of the vessel, and Izzy helped free the captives. When they finally docked at a nearby city, the rescued individuals were given medical attention, food, and shelter. News of the operation spread quickly, turning the story into a nationwide sensation. Izzy closely followed the aftermath, knowing that this was more than just an extraordinary find. It was a call to action. Yet, she couldn't shake the thought of how many more such containers might still be out there, waiting to be found.